behind the veil. Pull back the curtain, light up the unknown. Some stories survive because they need to be told. Behind the veil, where the unanswered live, where mystery becomes history and shadows start to speak. Behind the veil, no secret disappears. The past is never truly gone, it's only waiting here. So listen close, the veil is thin tonight.
It's 4 o'clock in Los Angeles. It's 6 o'clock in Chicago and 7 p.m. and live from Philadelphia. Hello, everybody. I'm Mad Dog the Scipio. It's Monday night. You know what that means. It's time to go behind the veil. And tonight, boy, did we pick a good one, Mikey Messier. Tonight, the controversial death of music icon, the late legendary Cobain from Pearl Jam. Not Pearl. Yeah, is that Pearl Jam? No.
Nirvana.
Boy,
Yeah.
I had a Pearl. See, now I was listening to my Pearl Jam earlier.
Yeah, well, they were contemporaries.
Nirvana, yes. You know, it's interesting, Mikey. Nirvana. By the way, folks, I'm over here talking, Mike. I got to give Mikey his kudos. Mikey Messier is my co-host. He is not just a triple threat, folks. He is a quadruple threat. He's a writer, a producer, a director, an actor, and sometimes ice cream cone salesman out of the Mr. Happy ice cream truck.
Don't tell anybody.
I won't tell anybody, Mike. It's our secret. All the ice cream you can eat. Mikey, how you doing, kid? What's happening?
I'm doing good. Angelo. I'm doing real good. It's another hot, humid day here in Jacksonville, Florida, but I'm happy to be here. And I just was watching some Kurt Cobain footage in preparation for tonight to get my mind in that Nirvana mindset. You mentioned Pearl Jam. Back in the day, Angelo, the three big bands people usually set in order were Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden. And unfortunately, 2 out of the 3 singers are deceased, Kurt Cobain and Chris Cornell from Soundgarden. So, but that music was a big part of my childhood and my life, actually. So I'm happy to talk about.
Like you mentioned Chris Cornell. Interesting case too with Chris Cornell. It's something, from the moment that announcement was made, everybody who knew anything about Soundgarden and Chris Cornell went, not so fast. Something don't sound right about this. All of a sudden, commit suicide just got off the phone with his wife. Great conversation with his daughter. Got everything. Just signed a brand new deal with his record label. They gave him a huge advance, crazy financial advance, and you kill yourself? Are you kidding me? How does that happen, Mikey?
Well, I don't believe it did. I mean, I believe that Cornell and a few others have been the victims of foul play, and I don't think Chris Cornell. I believe they said he hung himself. I don't believe that for a second. And he played a concert the night before, and there's footage from that concert where he appears to be in great shape and having a great time. And it would be easier to believe in Cornell's case that he did something like that 10 or 15 years earlier, or maybe 20 years earlier.
Yeah.
But at the stage of life where he was at with a wife and child, and he seemed to be, he had done Soundgarden, then done Audio Slave, and back to Soundgarden for a reunion tour. It doesn't make much sense. The Kurt Cobain at the age of 27, I believe, Cobain died, but that would make more sense for a suicide, but I'm still skeptical on that one too.
I found out some interesting stuff in research, doing the deep dive into Kurt Cobain's past and his belief system, because I can, because of what I do here every week, and you found this too in doing your work as well. The deeper you dig, the more you find the humanity in the person.
Right.
And I found Kurt Cobain's humanity in the most unlikely place, his faith system. Before I get into that, just let me tell everybody what we're talking about here. And by the way, Mikey, I think the Chris Cornell case, and you tell me if you want to go this way, I think the Chris Cornell case would make a great Behind the Veil episode.
Oh, it definitely would. Yeah, it definitely would.
Beautiful. So we'll take care of that then. Well, let's tell everybody, Kurt Cobain's death is, even today, one of the most debated celebrity deaths in modern history, not just because he was the voice of his generation, but because the official story has never quite added up, not for the public and certainly not for the police. Now, Detective Michael Chisleski was supposed to be here tonight. I won't tell you the conversation I had with him, but let's put it this way. Even all these years later, Detective Michael Chisleski is fearful that the truth he speaks may get him in trouble.
Sure.
So he has, even at the last minute, and like today, I mean at the last minute, decided to back out of the show. We're going to have him here. And you can Google his name, folks. He's out there. Even though the case was ruled a suicide in 1994, a large number of fans, a growing number even today, investigators and journalists have argued for decades that the circumstances deserve the deep dive look. The official story and what officials concluded is that Kurt Cobain was found dead April 8th, 1994. That is without conjecture. We know that. Okay. He was found in a room above his Seattle garage in his very modest house, by the way. The official cause of death was ruled suicide by shotgun. Toxicity reports showed high levels of heroin. Sound familiar, Mike Messier?
Yeah, when we're talking about
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked last time about a lot of rock stars, Jim Morrison and others that were linked to heroin, although we didn't really have evidence of that when they were alive. Yep.
Yeah, well, guess what? Nothing's changed there, Mikey. Here's
Right.
what we know. No gunshot residue was found on Kurt Cobain. None. Despite the fact that he allegedly committed suicide with a shotgun, no residue was found. No blowback, no recoil was found. Also, interestingly enough, missing from his system were any traces of heroin. He did have in his system, however, and this is truthful, he did have some mild barbiturates in his system. We can explain that because Kurt Cobain, if you knew him and what he went through, took barbiturates to kind of like mellow him out, to as he used to say, to take the edge off, because he had some back problems and he had some physical ailments. Okay, so I'll buy that. Police ruled it a suicide, quickly ruled it a suicide, and the case was immediately closed, save for Detective Michael Chisleski, who said, wait a minute, I'm going to investigate this myself, to the point, Mikey, where he resigned his position as a detective from the Seattle Police Department to dedicate himself full time to getting to the bottom of the Kurt Cobain alleged suicide. To the point, Mike Messier, where here it is, 2026. We're how many years later now? Almost
32.
32 years later, right? 32 years later, and this guy still hasn't gotten an answer. something is afloat or someone is obstructing justice. I have a feeling you and I probably agree that it's probably somebody obstructing justice. Somebody doesn't want this case to be reopened.
Sure.
And I'll tell you what I did, Mike Messier. Being a filmmaker, you'll appreciate this. I wrote a full film treatment. I did. I have a probably 13, 14 page film treatment that I wrote on the death of Kurt Cobain, which I'm going to send you, by the way.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. And I'm going to send it to you hard copy by mail.
All right.
Because I don't trust it over the internet. Mike, let's stop there for a second. Okay, so Kurt Cobain was the front leader, the front man, the lead singer of Nirvana. He was called the voice of his generation. That generation, X generation, whatever you want to call it, that lost generation at the time. Every generation, we're in the, I guess, what are they now, Mikey? Generation Z? Is that what we're doing? Gen Z now?
I think they're at something called Gen Alpha at this point, but
right.
Yeah, Cobain. I believe Kurt Cobain was born in 1967, if I'm going by memory. So
Yes,
he would be he would be the older half of Generation X, and he grew up in Aberdeen, Washington, which was not Seattle, but it was somewhat close to Seattle.
Yeah.
And he grew up with parents that were kind of working class, lower middle class. They divorced. According to Kurt, the divorce was pretty ugly, and he describes himself as having a happy childhood until the age of 8, and that's when the family life kind of imploded and things got a little bit worse. And he found himself playing music as a release for his anxieties, and he claims he was bullied in high school like a lot of people were, and an outcast among outcasts, and so on and so forth. And eventually he did migrate to Seattle, where there was a big scene of Mother Love Bone with another guy that died young. The singer of Mother Love Bone was Andrew Wood. He died young. Chris Cornell was Andrew Wood's roommate. The band Pearl Jam eventually formed from the ashes of another band that had some members that were deceased. And Kurt Cobain and Nirvana were right in the middle of it. So, like I said, the big three were always Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden, usually listed in that order of grunge favorites.
The interesting thing is, when police want something over, when they don't want to deal with, and I found this time and time again doing the show, when the police don't want to bother because things are too sticky, too mucky, too dirty, they close the case so as not to deal with it. They sweep it under the rug and hope that the public forgets about it. They closed this case with lightning quickness, but the speed and certainty of the ruling is one of the main reasons why 32 years later, we're still talking about this. The controversy isn't even so much the suicide, although that's a rabbit hole we're going to go down. But I think the crux of it is, if there's nothing here, then tell people there's nothing here. They haven't done that. Nobody's done that. The official ruling didn't even do that. Nothing to see here. Move along. No, they didn't do that. What they did, by the speed, the lightning quickness of speed that they shut this case down, boy, that was a red flag to fans, friends and foe alike. They went, whoa, wait a minute. Wait a minute here. Things are going a little too fast here. Let's slow down and examine what we got. What we have is a dead singer, allegedly commits suicide, no residue on his hands or his face or any part of his body. They say, if you believe the ruling, that he put his big toe in the trigger and used
is that how he pulled it?
Yeah, guess what? How do you do that wearing a pair of sneakers?
Right.
He had sneakers on his feet.
Right.
Look at the picture of his dead body. He's wearing shoes, sneakers.
Yeah.
Okay. Why people still question it, Mikey? The heroin level argument. Let's assume, Mikey, that he had heroin, which we know now he did not. But let's assume for argument he did. They're saying that he had such an exorbitant level of heroin that if he had, Mikey, as much as they say he had, he wouldn't have been able to finish injecting it.
Right.
He wouldn't have had the ability to do so. He would have been dead before he finished it. That's one of the major claims. Some independent investigators have argued that the amount would have made him unconscious quickly. And I just verified what I said. Others argue that heavy users can tolerate enormous doses of heroin. Now, I don't know. I never heard that from anybody. I've never heard that argument made by anyone that, oh, well, yeah, you get used to it. No, that's a one drug that there is no plateau for. And you can check this out. When you do heroin, you got to treat every dose like it's going to be your last, because it just might.
Right.
It's not like smoking a joint where you chase the high and you become a pot smoker. Okay.
Yeah.
Which we know now that pot actually is beneficial for people. you know,
right.
Tell that to the people still in jail for selling pot.
So in other words, someone doesn't build a tolerance for heroin the more you use it. It's just you're playing Russian roulette with more bullets every time you try it.
It very, very well put. It's very well put. That is, could not have said it any better, and probably wouldn't have been able to say it any better. The truth is that Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love, his wife at the time of his passing, I'm going to say passing rather than suicide, because I don't believe it was a suicide at all.
Right.
At the time of his passing, he and his wife, Courtney Love, also an entertainer, were having one of their many marital fights. The fact that he caught her being unfaithful and forgave her once, and forgave her twice, and forgave her yet the third time after being unfaithful. I guess the fourth time wasn't a charm for Courtney Love, because Kurt Cobain was about to file for divorce. In fact, had already submitted the paperwork.
Right.
I don't believe that Courtney Love directly participated in his passing. What I do believe, based on the evidence, is that a number of people have come forward, taken lie detector tests, and passed those lie detector tests. When asked, were you paid for your cooperation in the death of Kurt Cobain? And one gentleman who went by the name Chunky, and that was his nickname, he's a biker guy. He said Courtney Love offered him $60,000 to kill Kurt Cobain. You can find that on YouTube, by the way, that video of him talking about it. But one of the most repeated points is the claim that Cobain had so much heroin in his system that he would have been able to physically operate a shotgun. Again, let's assume, just for argument's sake, like they say, Mikey, just for shits and giggles, let's just assume that he was doing heroin. If he did, again, if he did as much as everyone says, well, let's put it this way, not everyone, Mikey. If he did as much as the police say he did, he would have been incapable of firing that gun, which is why I'm absolutely certain beyond a shadow of a doubt that he didn't do it. I think someone did it for him. We also know, based on the forensic evidence, based on detectives' eyewitness statements, that the room smelled like bleach
Okay.
when they got there. Do you know anything about this bleach argument, Mikey? Because there was a whole film made about it.
I actually don't know about the Bleach argument, but I do know, ironically, sadly, that the Bleach was their Sub Pop debut album was titled Bleach. So that's just kind of a cruel irony there. But
It's a very
that,
strange, cryptic irony, actually, because
right.
the film that I'm talking about was by a photojournalist, along with the cooperation of a police officer in Seattle, and the film was called Soaked in Bleach.
Okay.
So if you ever get a chance to watch that film, it's called Soaked in Bleach, and it
All right.
is about exclusively about the death of Kurt Cobain, where and the photojournalist and the police officer together say this did not happen the way the Seattle Police Department said it happened. It did not happen that way, to the point where they were willing to put their money and reputations on the line. They have yet to this day to be called out on that. That should silence is golden, Mike Messier. Silence is
Well,
golden.
if I could jump in with a couple of
You
points
jump
that I'm
on
sure,
with a lot of points, brother. This is your show too.
I remember reading in the extensive Rolling Stone magazine coverage of the Kurt Cobain death, and the story at the time, at least, was that Cobain had, as the kids say these days, literally escaped from a psychiatric hospital slash rehab center. I'm not sure what the venue was officially, but that was the purpose. It was to basically rehab.
Yeah.
And my first contention is that would be very difficult for a rock star of Kurt Cobain's magnitude. He was just as famous, if not more famous, than Sting of the Police, Eddie Vedder that you mentioned. It would be like one of the Beatles escaping from the hospital without anybody noticing. And apparently they said that he just escaped from the hospital, the rehab center or the psychiatric hospital where he was getting treatment, and hopped on a bus and got home. And this is way before the days of Uber and Lyft and everything else. So
Yeah.
first of all, how would he have them? I mean, if you're in a hospital, typically they take away your personal possessions, including cash. So how would he get from this psychiatric hospital slash rehab center home without somebody pointing him out? Hey, that's Kurt Cobain taking the bus. Or
Yeah, exactly. How
you know what I mean?
How do you hide? How do you,
Right.
So what rock do you crawl under for your anonymity? You
Right.
have none. You have no, for lack of a better word, Mike Messier, you have no sanctuary.
He was one of the top 50 or top 100 famous people in the country at the time, in the world,
Yeah,
actually.
and one of the most recognizable.
Right. He's very
Yeah.
skinny.
Yeah.
He's very, I'm not picking on him, but I'm saying that he had a looked frail by comparison to other men of his age,
Yeah.
just a thin guy.
Yeah, well, look at him. Yeah.
Right. He was distinctive. He's a good looking guy, but he's also a very thin and not a physically imposing guy at the same time.
He had
Mentally
a
imposing.
if you looked at him, he looked like, in some ways, he looked like everybody else at that time, but he had
Right.
a uniqueness about him. His uniqueness, we just saw it. His uniqueness was a sweat. How many people of his age wore cardigan sweaters all year long?
Right.
He wore a
Yeah.
cardigan sweater all year long. That separated him. You don't see a lot of guys in their early mid-20s wearing sweaters, cut off tank tops, t-shirts, ripped shirts. I mean, whatever, any number of, but it's very rare, rare indeed, to see them wearing cardigan sweaters. Mikey, you've made an interesting observation in that he had no place to hide. How could he hide his face?
Right.
Is there a possibility that someone on the inside got him a ride on the outside, got him picked up on the outside.
It's definitely a possibility. And there was another movie, I think it was called Kurt and Courtney, which came out maybe 20 years ago, maybe
Yeah.
more, maybe 30 years, maybe, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago, which was about the allegations that Courtney Love, his wife at the time and the mother of his child, Frances Bean Cobain, had something to do with it. And ultimately, spoiler alert, that movie came to the conclusion that Courtney did not have something to do with it. But that was just one person's opinion and one
Yeah.
person's movie. But the point is, if the record company or if Courtney or if whoever in power had some influence on getting Kurt dismissed from the psychiatric hospital slash rehab center slash hospital, then that's quite a possibility that someone got him out of there. And then in the possible world of possible scenarios, possibly had him set up to had him murdered, had him committed homicide on him, making it look like a suicide. The other two notes I was going to make, you already made the one about the shotgun. It's very, if the thought was that he took a shotgun, then for those watching on YouTube, I'm demonstrating, I have pretty long arms, but Cobain probably has shorter arms than me. And for me to trigger a shotgun, to put it in your mouth and to pull the trigger would be extremely difficult. I had never heard the toe thing before you said it, Angelo. But
Well, I'll
think,
tell you, I'm actually going to. It's funny that Mikey, I'm going to pick up right where you left off there, because what I'm going to do is to not only to confirm what you just said, but I'm going to double down on it. Kurt Cobain had short arms, relatively speaking. If you want to see what I'm talking about, watch the way he held his guitar.
right.
Okay? Watch the reach that he had. The average guitar is about 3 feet long.
Yeah.
Okay. 36 inches is the average. Some custom made guitars, of course, bigger, some smaller, but the average is about 3 foot. Coincidentally, Mike Messier, the average size of your hunting shotgun or rifle is about 3 feet long. Okay. There is a vast difference on how you hold the guitar and how you hold a shotgun.
Sure,
Big
of course.
difference. A huge difference on how you hold a guitar and how you hold a shotgun. If you believe the narrative, the official narrative, he would have had to take his shoes off, place his toe in the trigger holster. Okay. He would have had to steady that straight, pull the trigger, blow his face off, which we already know did not happen. He would have had to do that. Then he would have had to put his shoes back on after he blew his face off, because he was wearing shoes at the time of his death, sneakers.
Right.
Okay. Here is what the alternate version is: the shotgun and fingerprint controversy. Theories behind both. Reports circulated that the shotgun had no clear usable fingerprints. We know now that that is not just speculation. It is forensically the truth. This not only fueled, but it set a fire, Mikey. This fueled claims that the weapon may have been wiped down and handled by someone else. Could not all of the explanation, but it could certainly explain why the smell of bleach was so pervasive in that room. But my question to you is, if you're a police officer, okay, you walk into a crime scene that smells with bleach, aren't your police instinct, your radar going to go up and say, somebody tried to wipe down this crime scene? That's the smell of bleach here. Why then? No police officer said that. Not one. Not one.
Well, then their motivations to not say anything were either A, incompetence, B, laziness, C, they had a different interpretation of it, D, I guess you could say that that's not true. I guess you have to put that in there. E, um, maybe they were just sick of being the town that hosted Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love. Maybe the police were conservative types. They were
Hmm.
sick of the grunt. They were sick of the grunge. They were sick of the teenagers. They were sick of the 20 somethings ruling the town. They were sick of being known for being the home of Kurt
Yeah.
Cobain and Courtney Love and all the rest of them. And they just figured, okay, well, now that we can get rid of this guy and he's gone and we can move on to getting back to normal, get back to our regular traffic tickets and our Dunkin' Donuts. And I'm not putting down the, I guess I am putting down the Seattle police, but my point is
I am. I think they did a
motivations.
shitty job.
Yeah, well, it's similar, and I know that we are not digressing into the wrestling world, but this case, in many ways, reminds me of the Chris Benoit case, just in the fact that it seems like there was a rush to judgment and not a full exploration of facts or
Well, you know what,
possibilities.
Mikey? If it were a rush to judgment, I would have much more tolerance of accepting it. My problem is it was a rush to closure.
Right,
That's the problem I had. And I have that problem in the Benoit case as well. A rush to closure. Because we have a show coming up. This is our 9th episode that we'll be doing on the death of on the death of Chris Benoit.
right,
Because we have audio tapes now available that we did not before. And you can hear Chris Benoit making phone calls to various people. Some he sounds very clear, very mindful of what he's saying. And
right,
in other cases where he's just struggling to even talk because he's slurring his speech so badly. Here's what they say though. And I don't know, and I love the way the reporter puts this. He calls it the defending minority. The defending minority of the official story point to these, quote, facts, unquote. Fingerprints often don't show clearly on firearms. Really? Since when? Since when? Go back to the 1920s when fingerprint analysis was just in its infancy. To today, guess what? It hasn't changed that much. They still use powder and a brush. That's how you
right,
get fingerprints, powder and a brush. Now, of course, we have technology now that will amplify that, of course. But you're not going to tell me that if I put my hand on a gun and pull a trigger, you're not going to be able to tell if that's a fingerprint? Are you kidding me? You know, I was born at night, Mikey, but it wasn't last night. Here's
right.
the other thing. This might have some, and I want you and I to talk about this because this is why I saved this for last year. Environmental conditions and handling of the gun can smear prints. Now, we all know that Seattle, you know, the great Northwest is Seattle, Washington. Seattle is a very damp state. It rains in Seattle about 8 to 9 months out of the year. So it's
Okay,
constantly moist there. And I can accept the fact that perhaps, maybe, I'll give you like a little bit of rope here, okay? Maybe the conditions, the humidity, the natural atmosphere of Seattle may have played a part in maybe not holding on to the prints. But if somebody, and again, this is thank you God for the information from the police departments. If you're holding a gun to commit suicide, right?
right,
You're holding that gun for everything you're worth because this is your last moment. Your fingerprints are going to be on this, and not only your fingerprints, but your palm prints, your thumb, every part of your hand is going to be represented on that weapon.
right.
how do you not help me out? What I'm trying to say, Mikey, how do you not see that? How do you not
Reconcile.
yeah, exactly. Yes.
How do you
Why
reconcile?
acquiesce to and my question would be, and I would love for you to take over here.
Sure.
How do you acquiesce to the weather conditions?
That's a good question. I mean, are they saying that Cobain's fingerprints were not on the weapon? Is that what they said? I just lost
They
Angelo there,
said
but
it. No, you haven't lost me. I'm here. I'm here.
okay.
Yeah, I am. I was giving you full screen. I was giving you FaceTime there.
Oh, okay, cool.
Um, what I think they're saying is that the weather conditions may have over the 12 or 24 hours that he was up there, that the weather conditions being the humid time of the year it was, because you were talking about April,
April,
which
right?
is fairly warm in Seattle. Okay.
Okay,
Even in wintertime, they don't have like super cold winters.
right.
Above them in Canada, they get hit. But Seattle is kind of a strange place because the weather comes crossway rather than down like this. It comes across.
Okay,
So they get a lot of like warmer breezes, cooler breezes at some times of the year. April, in fact, April 8th is when they're saying that he committed suicide. April
sure.
8th in Seattle would be fairly warm. It would be probably 50 degrees, which is not cold.
Right.
Certainly 50 is not cold. It's long sleeve weather. It's cardigan sweater weather.
There you go.
Okay. So I don't understand how they get that. I mean, I'm willing to listen to if anybody's got some sort of idea on it. I would love to know your thoughts on that, Mikey.
Is the story, Angelo, that they could not place fingerprints from Kurt Cobain himself on the weapon that
Yes,
killed him? Is that what they're saying?
that's
Okay, well,
exactly what they're saying.
and that the weather had something to do with that. I don't buy that for a second, because I've never heard that in any other case. The O.J.
Yeah,
Simpson case, where they used forensics and the glove and all that good stuff, and
yeah,
every case that we've seen on, and this is 1994, so I know for the younger people out there, that's before they were born, some of our listeners, but for
yeah.
many of our listeners, we know that fingerprints, blood samples, footprints of shoes, all these types of evidences were clearly still being used in 1994. 1994 is relatively close to where we are in 2026 as far as police procedures and gathering of evidence. It's not that far away, although for the younger people it would be far away. But I'm just saying that I don't buy that for a second. That 50-degree weather, 40-degree weather, 60-degree weather, any of that type of weather does not make common sense, and I could be missing something,
Yeah.
to affect fingerprints on a weapon. And the third point, Angela, and maybe you're getting to this one, but the thing that's always bothered me about the Kurt Cobain story, the end of it, is the suicide note, which oddly enough, Courtney Love chose to read over.
Oh,
She
oh.
read it out. Yeah, but this.
I'm ready for you there, Messi.
Okay, here we
I'm
go.
ready
So
for you, brother.
the suicide note, and this I believe was published in the Rolling Stone article, and this was openly discussed at the time. But the suicide note, from what I remember, from what I read, starts in print writing, you know, and then towards the end it goes into cursive writing. And some of the people,
there are three different hands on that note. They have already established 3 different people wrote that note. None of them were Kurt Cobain. None of them.
right?
They took known handwriting and print samples of Kurt Cobain's script, and they compared it. 3 different hands penned that suicide note, none of which were Kurt Cobain's. Mike, let me show you something real quick.
Sure.
This is a 30-06.
Okay.
This is the kind of, it's a bolt action rifle. Okay.
Yeah.
In order to fire it, you have to put 1 bullet at a time in. Okay. Because
Right.
it's not a what you would call like a cartridge rifle. Okay. There's no clip for it. It's from the late 30s, early 40s. You have to put it in the chamber. You have to close it, lock it down. There you go. You go. It's hard sometimes. It's old too. And
for those listening, yeah.
No, it's not.
For those listening, Angelo has a real rifle that he's demonstrating. For those listening,
yeah, exactly. Here's what I was telling you earlier. This rifle is 3 feet 6 inches. Okay. Now I want you to think about something. You would have to stick your toe here, right?
Right.
You got to put your toe there, and then you got to figure out a way to get this close enough to your head or your face where you're going to blow your brains out. But then you got to figure out how you're going to put your shoes on after you do all of this again.
Right.
Correct
and
me
right as soon as
have I lost my mind yet? Okay.
And you have to teach yourself to write a suicide note in 3 different writings, and also to escape a security enhanced psychiatric hospital or rehab center and get home while you're one of the top 100 famous people in the world. Sure.
And here's the other thing. We were talking about fingerprints. I want you to take note.
Right.
That's a wooden stock. Okay.
Yeah.
This is called the rifle stock. Okay. I know a little bit about, I know quite a bit about guns. This is a wooden stock, a wooden rifle stock. Me holding it like I am right now is leaving prints. Why? Here's why. Because the natural oil and sweat from your hands is going to leave a mark wherever you touch this. They are all distinguishable. Every fingerprint is distinguishable. How do you tell me that even if you assume, for shits and giggles, like I said before, that Kurt Cobain and the weather situation, and he white knuckled it and the whole bit. Even if you assume all that to be true, there's got to be somewhere on this wooden stock. Even if he's holding it like this, even if no matter how, if you hold this, you have to. This is how you're supposed to fire it. You hold it up to your shoulder to protect the recoil. Because it's got some kick when you shoot this fucker, okay? It will blow your arm out if you don't hold it right. Yeah. The problem is, the other thing I talked about just now, it's got some kick to it. Every time I say kick, think of the word noise. Okay? It's got some blowback. It's got some noise. You're not going to tell me that a guy goes into his garage, goes upstairs in his garage, and your wife is basically in the next room in the house, and she can't hear a friggin' rifle going off?
Right. Was she supposedly home when it happened?
I want to hear it. Say again, Mikey?
Was Courtney Love supposedly home when this situation happened?
Yeah, she was home. She said that the report she gave was that she was in bed and she was awoken by, and I want to make sure I get this right, a little disturbance is what she says. That was a little disturbance. Let's talk about that note. I love the suicide note. 3 different people wrote it. None of them were Kurt Cobain.
Right.
The suicide note dispute. Cobain left a note, allegedly, and it has been interpreted in 2 major ways. Number 1, supporters of the suicide ruling say the note reads like a goodbye letter from someone mentally exhausted. Skeptics argue Parts of the note sound more like Cobain was leaving Nirvana, not life. And the
Right.
handwriting near the bottom appears different or added. Some people believe the final lines are inconsistent and perhaps a third or fourth hand wrote the tone of the rest of the note. This has become one of the major focal points in the entire Kurt Cobain controversy theory. The timeline does not add up, not with the police and not with the public. And we're going to talk about this next, Mikey, the timeline, because something's way off here. Some people argue that timeline events, Cobain being missing, the way he was discovered, the delay before authorities became contains inconsistencies not usual in a police investigation or response. Okay, if you report someone missing, especially a high-profile celebrity, I don't care who you are, they're going to be out there like Jack Rabbit quick. Okay,
Right.
they're going to be out there like Jack Rabbit quick. When you're talking about Kurt Cobain, who was, as you pointed out yourself, one of the most prolific people of his time, certainly one of the most recognizable.
Yes.
Okay. The fact that they said he was missing, well, nobody knew if he was missing because nobody, when they went, no one, Mikey, no one went up to the garage loft. They came back to do that. Okay? They came back to do that. That's what the official report tells you. They even say it. They admitted it. We left. We saw nothing. We returned upon Miss Love's request. Okay. I'll buy that for now. The way he was discovered and the delay before authorities became alarmed. Well, before they became alarmed, well, how much convincing do you need to like investigate? This guy's a famous musician. He's got fans all over the world. You're not going to like do something, say something, make a statement. None of that was done, Mikey. None of it.
Yeah.
Not until they closed the fucking case, which was really quick.
Right.
In controversial cases, timeline confusion tends to create an open space for alternate theories. And in this case, boy, did it open up the floodgates.
Yeah, it sure did.
About that. Let's talk. Why? Can I ask you a question, Mikey? You're a filmmaker. You're a guy who makes movies based on your thought process, based on your ideas, based on your imagination. Does this sound like a suicide or a movie script or some real life play being played out? Because it doesn't sound like a normal murder investigation or it doesn't even sound like a suicide investigation to me.
Well, right. It sounds like a cover up, and there's definitely a lot of smoke. And even like I said, going back to, well, actually, you have to go back even, I think 4 or 5 weeks or 3 weeks before he actually died. I believe he was reported to have attempted suicide in Europe before the actual suicide occurred. So that's part of the story that we haven't really talked about. But like I said, just escaping the psychiatric rehab hospital in the first place, to me, is hugely suspicious. The handwriting is suspicious.
Yeah.
The fact that Courtney, and granted, this was the time of the early to mid 90s. Celebrity was just starting to get wrapped up in reality TV and stuff like that. But Courtney Love reading the suicide note to the fans always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And she was kind of chiding or having an open-hearted argument with her dead husband while she's reading the suicide note. According to, I believe, I'm going way back in my memory here, Angelo, but according to the Rolling Stone article, at the time, this is going back 32 years ago, but there was actually Kurt Cobain sightings after he died. Like people felt like they hallucinated a sighting, like he was Christ, basically. Like they saw him post death. In there was four reportings of that. I think there was four reportings of that. I think there was also four people. I think they were all men in Seattle who committed suicide, copycat suicides. So there were people that really cared about this guy.
Yeah.
If they were personal friends with him or fans or fanatics, whatever you want to call it. But this
Yeah.
was a big deal. This was a big deal, and it's still a big deal. I would say that a lot of the things. Well, who would have had the motivation? Well, you can say, well, maybe Courtney was sick of him, and she was sleeping with other guys, and she had used him up and was ready to move on to somebody else, whether it was Trent
Mhm.
Reznor from Nine Inch Nails or whoever. So maybe
Yeah.
Courtney had something. Maybe Courtney had something to do with it. Maybe the record company thought, you know what, this guy's
Oh
going to leave
boy,
our
did
label.
you open up? Boy, did you open up a Pandora's box, brother?
Right. So
Because I
maybe
want
the
to tell
record.
you, what, I'm going to let you finish that thought, and then I'm gonna lay some, I'm
Sure.
going to lay some shit on you. Good.
Yeah, so the thought would be something like the record company figured, hey, if we can get rid of this guy, we can sell his backlog of music and he won't be able to leave our label and go somewhere else because he'll be dead. So we can martyr
You're
him and
not
we can
far off, brother. Let me tell you what
right,
had happened in that 6 to 8 weeks prior to his alleged suicide. He was fighting with his music label. He was
yeah,
fighting for full, unfettered control of his publishing rights. He had purchased his own publishing company, which would effectively have taken the power of his music away from the recording company and into his personal wealth. He would have
right.
become extremely wealthy. Not that he wasn't a poor guy. Not
No,
that he wasn't a millionaire. Of course he was. He had many millions of dollars. We're talking about Elvis kind of money. We're talking about Michael Jackson kind of money. Okay.
sure.
When you own your own publishing rights, your own publishing company, you control the way the music is used, how much you pay for it, all of that. Who gets to use it, who doesn't get to use it. When Kurt Cobain went head to head with his music company, the first thing he said was, "You guys can do what the F you want. I'm keeping my publishing." They said, like, hell you will. Okay. Who do you think, Mike Messier, today in 2026, who do you think owns that publishing company?
Courtney Love.
100% lock, stock, and barrel. Why
Right.
would they sell it to her, but they wouldn't sell it to him? Think
And you
about
would
something.
sure.
He's the money maker. She's not.
Right.
She never made a dime. She's a grunge performer. Kurt Cobain was a grunge performer, performance artist, singer, songwriter, poet who, for whatever reason, for his time here, captured the imagination and soul of the young people who listened to his music. He was like their beacon. He was their light, their light bearer.
John Lennon is a big comparison.
Exactly. A perfect comparison. You see, my experience, Mikey, is that when you're getting too close to truth, whatever the truth may be,
Right.
somebody's going to take you out.
Sure.
I'm going to tell you right now what happened here. The center of suspicion has always been Courtney Love in some form or fashion. No discussion of Cobain's death exists without mentioning Courtney Love. She's been accused in documentaries, books, and amateur investigations of A, having motive, marriage turmoil, money, fame, lack of money, lack of fame, being emotionally unstable at the time, allegedly hiring someone to kill him, which I told you.
Right.
But it's important to clarify a couple of things. There is absolutely no legally provable evidence or connection between provability and Courtney Love. She's kept her hands very, very clean, not
Sure.
through her own doing, by the way, but extensively through an army of lawyers. She has no less than 40, I'm not making this word up, 40 lawyers that
Wow.
walked into the deposition with her. So many lawyers, in fact, they can only fit 24 in the room. The rest had to stay out in the lobby. That's the first one. Chaotic public behavior after his death added fuel and suspicion to Courtney Love. She apparently went off the nut for a little while, to
Right.
the point where she was openly tantalizing the press to prove it was her. Now, the movie I told you about, Soaked in Bleach, Tom Grant is the filmmaker of that. And the private investigator, and they don't mention his name, I guess, out of confidentiality. The Tom Grant and PI angle. Courtney Love hired investigator Tom Grant shortly before Cobain died or went missing. He later turned on Courtney Love, saying that he had sustainable evidence to use against her. He was quickly and systematically fired from his employ of her and went out and to create this documentary, Soaked in Bleach, along with a private detective. He recorded phone conversations and suspicions that helped ignite the public's belief that the case may have been mishandled. Now, the guy that I told you about that was offered money to kill Kurt Cobain, you're going to love this one. His biker name was El Duce.
The devil?
Yeah.
Okay.
In one of the strangest elements in the Kurt Cobain controversy is Eldon Hoke, also called Chubby or El Duce, a self-described musician who claimed someone offered him money to kill Kurt Cobain. He later said that it was Courtney Love that offered him money to kill Kurt Cobain. Shortly after giving an interview visible on YouTube even now, El Duce was killed in a very bizarre accident. He was set to testify against her in court.
Mhm.
Conveniently, he dies before that happens. Are you understanding what's happening here, folks? Because
Dead men tell no tales.
I know Mr. Messier and I are on the same page here, brother.
Yeah, dead men tell no tales is I think that's the quote from the Pirates of the Caribbean ride in Disney World, but it's a quote that's been said a lot in a lot of places.
Yeah. To conspiracy believers, this is proof something deeper was happening. To skeptics, it's just another tragic coincidence involving unstable people and a media circus. All right, well, let's talk about this.
Okay.
We have on this show, Mike, and I don't know if you know about it, but you need to be aware of it. We are one of the torch bearers for the reopening of the Kurt Cobain case. I will tell you here, Seattle PD reopening the case, sort of. Seattle police revisited the case in later years due to public pressure.
Right.
They reviewed evidence, photos, and reports and ultimately reaffirmed the suicide speculation. They changed their terminology. They no longer are calling it a suicide conclusion. They're calling it a suicide speculation. In other words, by doing that, the case, the state of Washington State, the city of Seattle, has left open as a cold case the Kurt Cobain alleged, now they're calling it alleged suicide investigation. Right. Critics argue that reviewing old evidence is not the same as a true reinvestigation, which is, of course, it's not. But the fact that we applaud them here. We applaud the Seattle Police Department here for doing what they said they were going to do. They reissue terminology, they change some of the criteria, and they have effectively made this case an open case, thanks in large part to people like us. I'm not saying we're taking all the credit. We're certainly not. But multiply this show and this kind of passion, multiply it by 10,000-fold or 100,000-fold, or dare I say even 1,000,000-fold, and it would still be under the norm for the number of people that are calling for a reopening of this investigation. He was an absolutely beloved individual, Mikey. We'll talk more about him right after this. I have to do this commercial, and we will be right back after a word from Manscaped.
You're on a hot date, you're making the cut. You can't be dealing with a faulty left nut. Manscaped is the answer for your gnarly nut sack. Before that babe tells you to hit the road, Jack. In this crazy world of ours, we're often climbing the walls. In all of the confusion, don't forget about your balls. Manscaped to the rescue for your precious crown jewels. Get it today, don't delay. Please be good to your tools.
If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction or alcohol dependency, help is available. Recovery is possible, and you do not have to face this alone.
If you're tired of fighting shadows in the middle of the night, if you're carrying a burden that's become too much to fight, if the bottle or the needle feels like all that's left to hold, there's a hand that's reaching out to you before the night grows cold. You don't have to walk alone. You don't have to hide the pain. There's a road beyond the darkness. There's a chance to live again. We're one call away, one step, one day from a brand new.
We are back on WTBR Radio 88.7 in Philadelphia. This is Behind the Veil, a presentation of What's the Buzz, America's Podcast. Tonight, oh boy, did we go down a couple of little rabbit holes on it, Mike Messier. Tomorrow night, we have an interesting show that I'm about to lay on everybody. I kept this a surprise, Mikey. I didn't want to really get you too excited, because I know that when you get excited, you can't contain your energy.
Sure.
Shut up, Mikey. Tomorrow night, the best and worst of wrestling announcers.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
That's going to be a good one. We got all the best and the worst of wrestling announcers. Everybody from Gordon Soley to Todd Pettengill, God forbid.
Well, that's one of the best in those two. I won't say which one, but one of the best in those two.
Yeah, for sure. Mikey, how about the show tonight? What'd you think?
Well, I think it's a great show, and it's we didn't get it. One of our most recent shows I did with you was about repackaged celebrities, and there is a Kurt Cobain repackaging rumor, and I'll just say that quickly. But basically, the rumor, and Angelo, I actually thought this at the time, and it's really weird, but it's other people have thought that Kurt Cobain, in some ways, looks a lot like and even sounds a lot like Rivers Cuomo from the band Weezer. And just as Cobain was fading out, Rivers Cuomo was fading in to the public consciousness of pop culture music.
Yeah. Can
And
I tell you, Mikey? I think it's him. I
okay,
think it's
well,
him. I'm
yeah.
gonna put it out there. I think that Rivers is Kurt.
All right.
There you go.
All right.
I'm just gonna put it out there. I think Rivers is Kurt.
Now, do you think it was a faked death, or do you think it was some type of extraordinary, beyond the scope of normal life death cycle weirdness? Which
I'm
way
going
do you
to
go
tell
with that
you
one?
what I believe to be the truth.
Okay.
And I believe this for several reasons, I'm going to elaborate. I believe that Kurt was taken out and placed into witness protection. And I believe this has happened several times throughout the history of music. And I'll name a couple of examples. I believe this happened to Jim Morrison, and I believe this happened to Elvis Presley. And we know that it happened to both of them. We can prove it. Because Jim Morrison was a CIA asset. And we know that factually now based on freedom of information. With Kurt Cobain, I think because of the fact that he had such a contentious relationship and so many, even upwards, they believe, of almost $1 billion. And you got to talk about 1994.
Right.
$1 billion is a lot of money. It was in 1994 as well. It was more money in 1994. But we're talking about a publishing house worth with publications and songs licensable all around the world that could have brought in several $1 billion. And he knew it. See, he wasn't just a prolific songwriter. He was a smart businessman. He knew if he owned his own publishing, he got to control the money, how it was used, how the songs were spread, who bought the songs, who could use the songs. He had the complete, as they say in pro wrestling, complete creative control.
He had the pencil.
Over his music publishing. And nobody, once you have complete creative control of your publishing house, you own it. No one, not your music company, not the recording studio, not the president of the country. Nobody can tell you how to use it. And he was prepared to license some Nirvana music for commercial use. And the publishing company said, no, you can't do that. And basically he came back with the argument, I can do whatever the fuck I want. I wrote this stuff. This is my stuff. So what they tried to do to him is what they tried to do to Michael Jackson. You're going to hear that story because Michael Jackson's family friend, Pearl Jr., is going to be here, and she'll basically tell you why she thinks Michael is still alive and in protection. We know now, again, it's the world's greatest secret that everybody knows. Michael Jackson's in WITTEC, which is witness protection. It's the short for WITTEC. Okay. The same can be said for the late Elvis Presley. Elvis was being extorted by the Church of Scientology.
Interesting.
Because Priscilla Presley and Lisa Marie Presley, the late Lisa Marie Presley, were members of Scientology. Okay. Lisa Marie Presley's declining health over the years, they tried to blame the Church of Scientology. They said, oh, well, Scientology had her eliminated because she wouldn't fork up the money and blah, blah, blah. That's not true. In any other case, I am not one, believe me when I tell you, I am not one to defend Scientology in any way, shape, or form. But I will tell you that I don't believe for one moment that Scientology had Lisa Marie Presley eliminated because she wouldn't fork up the money. Essentially, what they wanted, Mike Messier, is Scientology wanted control of Graceland. And that wasn't happening because Graceland has got, there are so many moving parts that keep that place going. Scientology can't keep up with that. They're in the weeds when it comes to that. That place is like a whole nother level. Okay. Because there's so much money floating in and out of that organization. It's mind blowing when I tell you. But and people would say, well, Lisa Marie passed away. If Elvis was still alive, wouldn't he come out of hiding? No. I'll tell you why.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mikey.
Well, he would be at this point. He'd be over 100, so he'd probably be. If he wasn't,
thank you. Thank you. Exactly.
Yeah,
he would be
natural
Elvis and my mother were the same age. He would have been 91 had he lived. Okay, 91. I don't think Elvis is alive. Okay, let's just make sure we all understand that. I don't believe for a minute that Elvis Presley is alive at 91. I think that he certainly did live past August 16th, 1977. We know that factually.
Right.
We believe that he passed somewhere around 2018. That's what we believe. That's what all the evidence points to. And that's what, if you listen to the veiled comments, that's what Graceland is saying. But you have to listen to Graceland carefully because they'll tell you, they won't say was, they'll say is at certain points in their history. Oh, Elvis is, but Elvis, now it's Elvis was. Okay. Because Elvis is alive and Elvis was alive. Okay. There you go. It's all very cryptic, like Mike Williams would say, the Sage of Quay guy. Masterful speaking, okay? Masterful speaking. And by the way, we have had requests in the last 7 or 8 months to redo the Beatles again. And I'm just thinking, Mikey, have we exhausted the Beatles or is there more there?
There might be more there, and it's always fun to revisit it. I was just watching Paul McCartney and Linda McCartney in a song called Hell in Wheels, which I had never seen the music video before last night. And it's a great song and it's a fun music video. And I mean, after talking to Sages Quay and listening to the audiobook version of the Paul is Dead book, supposedly written by Paul McCartney or Billy Shears, I have them
here. But is that the memoirs of Billy Shears, right?
The memoirs of Billy Shears. I listened to the audio version. Which was recorded by the producer's son, right? The Beatles, his son.
Yeah.
His son recorded the audiobook, then later on tried to distance himself from it. But in any event, I have become very suspicious of the Paul McCartney situation. Looking at the earlobes, every time I see Paul McCartney or Billy Shears, I look at the earlobes, I look at the height. I try to read in between the lines, and it all goes back to that original.
Mike, why don't you talk about that a little bit? You do that, and I'm going to pull something up because I think people would be interested. Go ahead, Mike. Talk about it.
Okay, so the story goes way back when, and the year must have been 64 or 66, that there was an article published in the UK, I believe, in a newspaper back when people read the daily newspaper, and there was a photograph of a mangled car. And the article basically said Beatles member Paul McCartney died last night in this car accident. And apparently, according to our friends Vince Russo and Mike Williams, the Sages Quay, and many, many other people, there was actually television reports about this at the time. This is going back to the 1960s, where, conspiracy things and questioning authority was probably just starting to rise up a little bit. And basically, the question even back then is this Paul McCartney really the same Paul McCartney, or has he been replaced by a substitute? And why would anyone be motivated to do such a thing? Well, the answer is that the Beatles' music was kind of a lubricant, or it was something to appease the youth of the UK and the United States and the rest of the listening world, where if you give people this nice sugary music to listen to, they're less likely to protest a war, or they're less likely to protest racism or government control or whatever. Soothing to the general public is the idea, so that the powers that were to be figured it was better to keep the Beatles together as a band, and if they had to put in a replacement member to take the spot of Paul, that's what they would do. And they happen to have this guy whose name might be Billy Shears or William Campbell, and he had won apparently a Paul McCartney lookalike contest at one point, and he was also kind of a good musician in his own right, but never got a big break. And they basically planted him into the Beatles and made him the new Beatle. And here we go with some photography evidence. Thanks, Angelo. And on the left, if you're looking on your screen on YouTube, on the left is the Paul McCartney in 1966, where you can see that the ears are a little bit different. The face is much rounder. If he was standing with John and George and Ringo, you would see that he would be a little bit shorter than the rest of the Beatles. And then on the right, you see 1969, what they're labeling fall, or the new
Mike,
Paul.
Can I just tell you something that I've never noticed until just now? And it's funny because I've seen this picture, like you and I have seen this picture many times. I just noticed something. The real Paul on the left has a little cleft in his chin here.
Right.
But Billy Shears does not. He's got a more of a bubble chin. I'll call it that.
Yeah.
You see his chin? It's a very different chin.
It's interesting because I was watching on YouTube today about Kurt Cobain and Rivers Cuomo, and the same thing came up, that there's one slight difference between the Rivers Cuomo face is that he has more of the new Paul face, like the bubble chin, as you call it, as compared to the cleft chin or the indentation. And so could that be surgically altered? Of course. Now, here's a really drastic set of pictures that Angelo just provided for those listening. On the left, you see a very young Paul McCartney. And on the right, you see the second Paul McCartney, or Fall, or Billy Shears, whatever you want to call him. And once again, the eyebrows look pretty similar. The nose is much different. The smile is kind of similar, and the teeth look a little similar in this one, but the lower lip looks a lot different. And of course, different photographs are going to capture people in different lights and different, if you have a fever, or if you're in cold weather versus hot weather, if you gain 10 pounds, if you lose 10 pounds. I mean, Angelo, there's situations where people look at me, if they see pictures of me with short hair, they don't necessarily think I'm the same guy with long hair.
Yeah.
But even still, when someone is examined as Paul McCartney, and all the Beatles were so examined, we know that they had not stand-ins, but guys that would pretend to be Paul and George and John and Ringo in order to distract the fans when they're going in and out of buildings, like stunt doubles, basically. And so we don't know if some of the photographs are those stunt doubles. Here's a Paul McCartney fake Paul or false Paul comparison. This is very drastic. The chin, as you said, Angelo, the nostrils look different. The teeth look different.
Yeah.
This one, it looks like his eyebrow, his left eyebrow on the false Paul.
Yeah.
It looks like kind of the Vanilla Ice eyebrow, where you have like the eyebrow that's kind of cut up a little bit.
The words right out of my mouth. Let me ask you a question. It's funny how when we look at these. Oh, I'm sorry, I got the wrong one. I pulled the wrong one, Mikey. Here you go. That's what I was looking for. Here's the interesting thing. You and I can look at these photos, and everybody can look at these pictures and pull out the differences. But the funny thing is, when you see him With the other three, they look
Right.
like the four that belong together, don't they?
Interesting.
It
I,
is. It's someone has suggested, Mike, and I'm going to throw. Boy, am I going to
Sure.
throw a monkey wrench into this rabbit hole.
All right, go for
There
it.
are people who suggest that each one of the Beatles, and I'm not making a word of this up. You could check out the conspiracy people on YouTube. The thought is that every one of the Beatles had at least two lookalikes for touring purposes, for recording purposes, for photo op purposes. Do you buy any of this? Is it? Let me ask you this: is it plausible?
It's plausible, and I'll give you another. Once again, bringing it back to our friends, the wrestlers. When I was once writing a wrestling column for my college newspaper, pro wrestling column, and one of the wrestlers I spoke to he claimed that he had wrestled as one of the Mounties, like the WWE had the tag team of the Quebecers, and
Yeah.
this local Rhode Island wrestler had basically a Mountie type of gimmick, and he claimed that on some house shows for the WWF at the time, he actually substituted for not the Jacques Rougeau Mountie, but the other Mountie, and Pierre Roulette, basically saying that they were using him as a stand-in when necessary. And I said, "Is that true? Did that really happen?" And he said, "They do that with Macho Man too." So he was basically telling me that at the time, Macho Man Randy Savage was wearing a hat and he was wrestling with a lot of body stuff on. And
Yeah.
basically claiming that the Macho Man, sometimes if you went to a house show, you weren't seeing Randy Savage or Randy Poffo. You were seeing a guy dressed up as him and trying to get away with something. And
Can I tell
if
you
you look
something?
at,
I will
Sure.
tell you, and you're going to love this one. And then I'll bring this picture back up. You're going to love this one. I will tell you factually, because I was backstage at the Philadelphia Spectrum and I saw this with my own eyes. And thankfully, my late wife was there with me, and my friend Cal Rudman that used to do Spectrum Wrestling. Hulk Hogan was supposed to wrestle Terry Funk in a branding iron match.
okay,
Hulk was late getting there and wasn't feeling well. So what did they do? And I saw this myself. You're not going to fucking believe this. Dan Spivey, who is the same size as Hulk, built like Hulk, they put, Mikey, I swear to God, they put spirit gum on him. They put the mustache on him, and they had him going out as Hulk, and nobody in the Spectrum, 24,000 people never fucking knew it wasn't Hulk Hogan. He did the whole thing, man. He did the whole thing, you know. He did that, like, yeah. They never
Right.
knew it wasn't Hulk. And Vince McMahon was there that night. And Vince McMahon hollered at my friend Cal Rudman. He goes, "These are marks. They belong in the audience, not back here." Okay? And yeah, you can't make this shit up. You just can't. I'll tell you something else I saw. Okay? You're going to love this. We all know that because of the passing of Doink the Clown, which was the original Doink was
Matt Bourne.
Matt Bourne. Oh God,
Right.
Rest in peace. He was a troubled soul. Matt Bourne, after he passed, you would have never known he passed because there was a couple of guys that looked and were built just like him. One guy who is still alive today and still does Doink the Clown on occasion. His name is Ray Apollo.
Yeah, Ray Apollo. Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about? Ray Apollo.
Yeah, Ray Apollo
looks more like Doink than Doink, okay? He's got Doink the Clown down to like a science. There have been other people. I saw the guy that did Macho Man. Okay?
Right.
There was a guy that did Macho Man. He even did the voice, which is very easy to impersonate. Macho.
Oh yeah.
All you had to do was come down here, brother. Oh yeah. You know,
Right.
the same as Hulk Hogan had one of those unmistakable voices but everybody can imitate him. Well, you know, brother. You know, well, you know,
Right.
Yeah, everybody had to do Mean Gene. You know, well, you know, Mean Gene.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
everybody that's memorable to us in wrestling is easy for us to mimic, to impersonate,
Right.
to copy. Look at I'm going to look at this picture here, the one I just brought up. Check this out. That's
This is Paul and Billy.
Dramatic difference.
Yeah.
Guess what? There's only 2 years between those two pictures.
Yeah. If you were going to tell me that was right, if you were going to tell me that was 15 years, I might buy it as being the same guy. But 2 years. For those that are listening, the Billy Shears, the new Paul, the fall, the forehead is much longer. The head is elongated. We know people go bald and they lose some hair.
Yeah.
But this is like the shape of the head is different, and the ears are always the tell because you can't really do much about that as far as surgery and stuff.
Yeah.
And just here's my thing with the Beatles and Sgt. Pepper's and Paul is Dead. If it's not true, if it actually didn't happen that they used a substitute and they repackaged this, William Campbell, William Shears as Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
If it's not true that that's what happened, the Beatles certainly played along with it. I mean, there's songs where John Lennon is, singing about Paul McCartney being dead and stuff like that, and the whole Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band cover art has many references to the Beatles attending their own funeral or the Sgt. Pepper's band attending the Beatles' funeral. And they put so many Paul is Dead messages out there that if it wasn't a true action, a true replacement, it was a tremendous subversive marketing scheme engineered by the Beatles and or their record label and or the British government in order to create fan interest, because here we are.
I think you're absolutely on to it. I think what happened is, remember something, and you have to always remember this whenever you're talking about rumor and speculation. And we talk about it all the time on this show. We do this show behind the veil for a reason, to cut through the rumor and speculation, because the truth is always stranger than fiction.
Right.
In every bit of rumor, there is a bunch of truth, but you got to dissect the truth from it. You have to extract it like the dentist extracts your teeth. Sometimes it's as hard to either. Now, here's the thing, though. I think the Beatles heard the rumor, knew the rumor, and fed into the rumor and said, you know what? Let's give them what they want. Let's play into it. This is great marketing. And in the process, Sgt. Pepper became the single greatest selling album in the history of rock music, even to today.
Right.
With interestingly enough, Elvis Presley is the second. Aloha from Hawaii is the second greatest, the second biggest selling rock album. They call it a rock album, but it's in that category of rock and roll. The Beatles are the number one selling album. Elvis is the second. You'd be interested who the third was.
Michael Jackson and Thriller, or Hotel California, the Eagles.
Michael Jackson. Yep. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now, because neither one of the other two are recording, and with the new Michael film, Michael Jackson is now the number one recording artist of all time. And the film Michael today just broke the $1 billion in sales. First movie in motion picture history to break $1 billion in its opening. How about
Well,
that shit, baby?
I saw the movie, and I'll have to admit that I've had many mixed feelings about the Michael Jackson story over the years, but I liked the movie Michael Jackson better than how I liked the real Michael Jackson. Like I like the movie. I like the movie how the movie portrays him, and as
Yeah.
opposed to having lived through it with all the allegations and the
Well,
holding the baby over the thing and everything.
I'm gonna say something I alluded to earlier when I talking about Kurt Cobain. The deeper you dig into Kurt Cobain, the more you find his humanity. And I think
Right.
that's what the filmmakers and the director and producer of Michael did. They dug to find his humanity because for much of his maligned life, Michael was the butt of a joke. He was a punchline for late night
Sure.
talk shows for years. It wasn't until, and I don't, and you might be able to correct me here, Mikey. I'm just going on recollection. And I'm older than you, and I forget shit. But I
Right.
think if I remember right, it might have been Thriller that where people actually took him serious, like not only because of the music video, because of the songs. He wrote most of the songs himself with collaboration from others, but a lot of it was just him sitting down with pen and paper. And I think because of the success of that, they didn't have a choice but to take him seriously. And I think after Thriller is when they took him probably as serious as they were going to take him. And then, of course, somebody had to go, piss in that bowl of Cheerios too, with sexual allegations and wacko, jacko, and all this other crazy stuff. Michael.
Right. Well, if I could respond on 2 points. The first one is I think the night that he made himself a made man and made himself the man in pop culture, and this is at a time when you had Culture Club and Boy George and Cyndi Lauper and Madonna and Van Halen and Bruce Springsteen, and there were some super huge acts at the time. But the night, I believe it was the Grammy Award night, when Michael Jackson performed Billie Jean, and he broke out the glove, the singular glove, and he broke out the moonwalk. And then the next day, he was the guy. He was the guy. He was the performer. He was Frank Sinatra. No offense, Angelo. I know he's big for you,
None
but
taken.
he was
Frank
the top
Sinatra.
guy. Yeah, but I'm saying that the night of that show, I believe it was the Grammys. I could be wrong.
You're 1,000% right, Mikey. He solidified at the Grammy Awards. That was a historic presentation. That show, it will go down in history as the Grammy show. If there was never another one, that was it.
Right.
And I
So
think
it must have been 83.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it perfectly. He took the glove out, he held it up, he put it on, he closed the suitcase, he put that down, the hat came out, and then you saw the jacket, the hat, the glove, and now the famous moonwalk, by the way, which he took from Fred Astaire back in the 1940s.
Well, Angelo, I can say that I was a schoolboy that night that happened with Michael Jackson, and going to school the next day, the teacher was talking about it, the whole class was talking about it. And we're little kids. We're little kids. So if the little kids are talking about it, you know that the adults are talking about it. The decline, unfortunately, speaking of little kids, no pun intended, but I think that Michael and Michael's defenders, you can blame the press, you can blame the media, you can blame the documentarian, you can blame people turning against Michael or trying to sell tabloids. But the reality is, Michael, in his own words, kept his bedroom door open for these kids, little boys for the most part. He welcomed them to sleep in his bed by his own words, not by conjecture, not by the media, not by me.
Yeah.
And the reality is, Angelo, no adult, with exceptions, of course, step parent or something like that,
Mhm.
or a trusted babysitter or something like that. But no adult should really be having other people's kids alone with them in their bedroom with
Yeah.
sleepovers. The children are not your contemporaries, and I get it. If Michael was an abused child and he never got over his father being abusive to him mentally and or physically, I understand. I have empathy for that. Of course I do. But the
Yeah.
reality is, no adult should be setting themselves up to be in a position of even being accused of such horrible things. And I just watched another Michael Jackson documentary, I think on Netflix, and it really is a thing where the smoke, where there's fire, blah, blah, blah. If Michael didn't do the most horrible things that he could have done, he at least was guilty of allowing the conjecture to happen because he put himself in some really stupid situations, really bad looking
And,
situations.
he really did. And but here's the thing about talking about innocence. There's a fine line between innocence and stupidity, because you're a grown man. You should know better than to invite a young, a minor child into your bed.
Yeah,
Now, on one hand, it's extraordinarily irresponsible and stupid, but on the
right.
other hand, he grew up with no sense of direction. His father, it was an ogre, if you believe the film, and he has much said so in real life that Joe Jackson was, Joseph was a complete, a narcissist, complete narcissist.
Sure.
That believed that they were nothing without him. And when they finally
Well,
separated from Joseph, they all became very successful, including Michael.
well, you could, and trust me, I'm not a big fan of Joe Jackson. I don't know too much about him, but kind of like the Venus and Serena Williams, the tennis players.
Yeah.
Will Smith plays that guy in a movie and gets an Oscar, and everybody says, "Oh my God, what a great father! He had this vision for his daughters. He got them out of the hood. He
Yeah.
got beat up on their behalf. He got them out of the ghetto." Well,
Yeah.
what's different between him and Joe Jackson is the allegations of child abuse. I guess that's the difference. But my point
Yeah.
is,
Probably.
what's the saying, Angelo? There's always three sides to the story: my side, your side, and the truth.
And the truth.
And
Yeah,
I
exactly.
I think
Yeah.
the problem is with these situations, we didn't have a society like we do now where everything's being recorded 24 hours a day. So
True.
whatever happened to Michael Jackson as a child with his father, we'll really never know the truth. Whatever happened with Michael Jackson and those kids, we can speculate, we can listen to the testimony, we can debate it, we can argue it. We'll
Yeah.
never know the actual truth,
You want to know
you know?
the scary, sad, unfettered truth today? If that happened today, exactly as it happened then, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation. It would be just another day in the news, and the weather today. That's what it would
Right.
be. Nobody would give a shit because it's become commonplace. Mike, there's organizations that are they're proponents of parents and I'm not parents, adults and kids sleeping together. They're promoting this activity. They're promoting it. It's like,
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
the groups like oh God, what's the fucking? I heard about it today.
NAMBLA, North
NAMBLA,
American Man.
North
Yeah,
American
yeah,
Man Boy Love Association. Yeah, that's crazy. I heard about it
Yeah.
today. That's
Yeah.
bizarre to me.
Well, you can look up. There's
just don't
TED
understand
Talks.
So crazy.
Yeah, the TED Talks, which were for a long time very well respected and held in high esteem. But there's been some controversial TED Talks, at least one that I know of, where a woman was basically saying, we're going to have to accept that some people are attracted to underage individuals and not hold that against them and understand. And it's like, wait a minute. And so basically she's saying these people are born criminal and they can't help it. And we have to be empathetic and sympathetic. But it's like, well, if they have a disease, if they have a condition, maybe be empathetic or sympathetic or something. But at the same time, you have to protect the children. And you can't empower these guys that have some type of mental condition that makes them criminal behavior, sexual perversion. I mean, if we can just be honest and call it what it is, it's a sexual perversion. It's not to say that these guys shouldn't get therapy or intensive medication or whatever they need to fight these desires. And I think you and I'm sure I'm having a flashback that you and I did an episode a couple of years ago where there was a case where a gentleman knew that he had a horrible attraction to underage people, and he was asking to be have his testicles removed so he wouldn't act on it, and the people wouldn't listen to him. I'm trying to remember what that story was.
Yeah, he wanted the state to chemically castrate him.
Right.
It was a case where he pleaded, I believe it was in, I'm wanting to say either Wisconsin or Montana. It was up in that part of the country, up that way, near Canada. And he petitioned the state of whatever state he was in, either Wisconsin or Montana. He wanted them to chemically castrate him to take away the urges. So even if it didn't take away the urges, he could not act on it.
Right.
Because he felt like he was being, to use his words, he felt like his genitals were controlling his life. And he wanted them gone.
Right.
And
nobody... And the powers that be,
Mikey, I'm really of the mindset that you know yourself better than anybody.
Sure.
So you know what you're capable of, you know?
Right.
What do you, let me ask you, Mikey, what would you do in that situation? If you said to the guy, you know, I have the power to drop the hammer down, the gavel, I'll grant your wish. What happens then? Okay, so
I can see the torment of the people, because that's basically putting the power of maiming somebody. That's like saying, I feel like I'm going to punch somebody randomly, so I want you to cut my arm off. Well, that's putting the other person or the authority that I'm going to be responsible for maiming somebody. What if I cut their arm off? What if I cut their arm off and they yell at me, "Hey, you cut my fucking arm off"? You know what I mean? Pardon my French here, but I'm getting excited. But it's like, what if if the state or the authority were to cut this guy's testicles off, and then the guy says, "I'm going to sue you. You cut my testicles off," and that, I mean, it goes down the rabbit hole of the trans regret situation.
Man, holy shit! MikeMessier.com is the website. Mikey, if I go on MikeyMessier.com or MikeMessier.com and I go there and I look around, what am I going to find on MikeMessier.com? Tell everybody.
Well, you can find Fight or Play Basketball. You can find the link to that. That's my book, the audiobooks on Hoopla and Audible. You can find my paintings on Instagram, Mike Messier Art on Instagram. You can find a lot of my short films that you can watch for free on my YouTube and Vimeo links. You can find samples of my acting. I just did a nice movie with Danny Roebuck called Gator Babes. Danny was in all types of stuff, Agent Toby Banks and The River's Edge and all types of productions. He played Jay Leno in the Late Shift movie, which was great. And basically, Mike Messier. Yeah, that was a great movie.
That was a really good movie. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, so I got to go to Danny's.
Letterman and Leno. That was crazy stuff.
I'll give it Danny. Danny, actually, you'd appreciate this. Angelo is a film connoisseur, but Danny Roebuck had these nice illustrations. A friend of his did these of some of the horror monster classics. That's the Bride of Frankenstein.
I love it.
And apparently, Danny did a signing at a convention. This is one of his personal favorites. Is the monster from the Black Lagoon, I believe. the Blue
Oh,
Lagoon.
the creature from the Black Lagoon. Yep, sure was.
Right. And
Funny.
so Danny didn't create these, but a friend of his did, and I complimented him, and Danny gave them to me. So he let
Oh,
me
that's
take these away as a little. Right. It was nice of him. That's
I
her.
love it.
This one's probably the sexiest one. That's from
Yeah,
the
Yvonne DiCarlo.
right.
I'll tell you what, she was a hottie, boy. Yvonne DiCarlo was a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
She was. If to those of you that don't remember, if you're not old like I am, Yvonne DiCarlo played Lily Munster on the original TV series The Munsters back in the
Yes.
day, as they say.
I think Danny was in a reboot of the Munsters. So that's why he has a special affinity to Herman Munster and Grandpa
Oh,
Munster.
okay.
He was in one of the reboots.
Good stuff. Tomorrow night we are going to talk about the best and worst wrestling announcers. We're going to have some fun with that since it's our Tuesday show, the What's the Buzz show tomorrow night. Next week, going to be an interesting show next week, Mikey. We got Robin Strom coming on the show. Now, Robin is part of the TAPS Ghost Hunter group that you see on TV, the Ghost Hunters with the Jason and that crew. Robin is a paranormal researcher. She's got 3 books out. We're going to talk about her books. And we're going to talk about, and I didn't tell her, by the way, what I actually do. And so that's going to be a surprise to her. But we're going to talk about Robin and her books and her journey as a ghost hunter and how she became a ghost hunter and all. That's going to be some fun stuff. And then let me just double check here my schedule for Tuesday night, Mike.
Okay.
And Tuesday night is WWE promoting Wrestling with a Satanic Agenda.
All right.
WWE Wrestling with a Satanic Agenda. That'll be Tuesday night. It's interesting because I made it's funny how AI can be your best friend or your worst nightmare. In this case, it was both, Mikey. It was both my best friend and my worst nightmare because I simply said to Grok AI, show me signs of WWE promoting a satanic or occult agenda.
Okay.
And I printed out 37 pages. And probably 200 pictures. And I have them, and I'm going to show them.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Anyway, MikeMessier.com. You can see Mikey there. For those of you who come here once a week, there you go. You can see us good now. We are here Mondays and Tuesdays. We will start to be here Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I got a special show coming up on Wednesday night with a very special host. That's going to be a Wednesday show only. Mikey and I will be here on Mondays and Tuesdays, but you won't see us Wednesday. We got a special show coming up for people on Wednesday. We have, we have a bunch of stuff coming up. We have some live program coming up on my vacation. Those programs are already scheduled. I had to do that before Mikey got here, so I didn't stick it in the midst of my craziness.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's all good. That's all good. Want to thank everybody for, especially want to thank Tony. I want to get Tony's last name right, so give me a second.
Sure.
Tony Lubinsky. I don't know, but I always wanted to call him Lebowski because I remember that movie, The Great Lebowski. I keep wanting to call Tony Lebowski, but his name's Lubinsky. Right. Tony Lubinsky at Globecast Satellite. Thank you, Tony, for 17 million households worldwide. That's a real number, Mikey. Awesome. And I got the stats to prove it, bro. I got the stats to prove it. I want to thank our viewers on YouTube for a combined viewership of 2,200 subscribers on our 5 YouTube channels. We have 1,004 subscribers just on one, and the other, because Yeah, we have 5 YouTube channels. The other, I have one main channel, and I use the others as backup. Now I'm using everything. I'm using everything.
What's the main one you want to? What's the main one for people?
Oh, the main one is right here. I'm going to bring it up to you, and I'm going to. Here it is. Hot damn! Here it is, right there. At the bottom of the screen, you're going to see What's the Buzz Podcast, WTBR Radio, and it is at Linktree and YouTube. And I'm going to bring this up for everybody right here. Like and subscribe to youtube.com at What's the Buzz Podcast. That is our main one. That's the one we want everybody to like and subscribe to. And we are here also. If you want to check out at WTBR Radio at podbean.com, that's our hub. You will find on that hub more than 1,300. You'll find exactly 1,324 audio episodes. If you go to our Odyssey at What's the Buzz Podcast, you will find almost 2,600 videos on Odyssey. Go to YouTube and you will find a combined effort of our present and past episodes, many of which Mike Messier took part in, of more than 4,000 videos on our 5 YouTube channels. Our main channel here at youtube.com at What's the Buzz Podcast, that channel alone has 3,600 videos. Check them out. They are amazing. I encourage everybody to check our stuff out. I think you'll like them a lot. And that's youtube.com at What's the Buzz Podcast. And enjoy it, because that's we're here to make your life happy, and we like to do that because we're good. Like that.
Very good.
I don't know what else to say after that. Like I'm not used to promoting myself, but I guess I have to.
You're getting good at it. You're getting good at it. Yeah.
I'm hanging around you. I'm learning from you. You're teaching me. Like saying the wrestling business, you're smartening me up, Mikey.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a good one. All I do is, anything to promote. You got a movie coming out with Danny Roebuck.
Yeah, that'll be out. That'll probably take a year. I still promote the book, The Fighter Play Basketball, and if people want to
do a special show for that too, Mikey.
Yeah, so if people have time between now and then to listen to it on Audible, Fighter Play Basketball, or Hoopla, just put Mike Messier Fighter Play Basketball in the search engine on Amazon, or if you go to MikeMessier.com, there's a direct link. And it would be great if a couple of the people that are listening to us right now listened to the book or read it before the show, and then they'd have some comments when we do the show live in a week or two.
And if you want to purchase that book or go here, everything is right here at MikeMessier.com. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
It's your one-stop shop for all things Mike Messier. You can go there for his art, his books, his video reviews, his wrestling rants, his movie reviews that he does from his car. What else you got, Mike?
That's enough. I mean, that's a lot. You know what I mean? But I appreciate
that. Kid.
We've talked for almost 2 hours, and
I know,
real quick.
Great. Hell, we do 2 hours standing on our head, Mikey. Well,
we didn't get into this. Sure.
For Mike Messier at MikeMessier.com, I am the Mad Dog. You can reach me at What's the Buzz Podcast at gmail.com if you want to drop me a line, shout at me, holler at me. I talk too much. I do this, I do that. Everybody says I talk too much. You know what? I have to. It's a talk show.
Right.
For Mikey, I am the Mad Dog. Like Papa DeCipio always said, tomorrow's promised to no one. So be good to somebody today. Make today count. Take care, folks. We'll see you tomorrow night.